imagine a world where SCPs are real. That creatures only seen in your worst nightmares are real and roam around the Earth, and people risk their lives to contain and study them. What if Earth was run by the SCP Foundation? The SCP Foundation is responsible for capturing and containing a number of anomalies. Each have their own strengths and weaknesses. Some can be caught and detained with ease. Others can cause mass bloodshed and panic if they escape. I don't know about you, but I would feel incredibly frightened to live in a world where these creatures also lived. For starters, there are over 6,000 SCPs. Some for sure are harmless, others not so much. Let's take a look at some of the scariest, deadliest, and most powerful SCPs that would run the Earth. For starters, we got SCP-682. Now this dude is terrifying because it has a hatred for all living things, humans or otherwise, and it's practically immortal. So it's not like we could just kill it and then be done with it. No, he is capable of killing humans at any given time. Here's what one person had to say about it, and I quote, "This SCP is an absolute killing machine, and the fact that it can regenerate from any wound, fatal or not, to a human being is utterly terrifying." And I agree, plus going outside would be a huge risk with this guy lurking around. Then we have SCP-096, aka Shy Guy. Now this guy is very dangerous. Any eye contact with him is enough to drive him insane, and you don't have to be face to face for this to happen. It can happen if you look at a drawing of him or a picture of him or in a reflection, so on. When this happens, he will throw a fit. He will then hunt down whoever looked at him, and when he finally finds you, well, you can assume the worst. Reports have said that looking at even a part of a picture that has his face in it will get you killed. Next up we have SCP-610. This creature is nasty. According to the Foundation's website, and I quote, "It appears to be a contagious skin disease at first, with symptoms including rash, itching, and increased skin sensitivity. Within 3 hours the disease will cause blemishes resembling heavy scar tissue to form in the chest and arm areas, spreading to the legs and back within an additional hour, consuming the victim completely within 5 hours. It can literally turn you into an immobile sack of flesh, just like itself. And because of its infection rate, containment is near impossible." With the mention of these 3 SCPs alone, I bet we can all agree that life on Earth would be a living nightmare. Now imagine thousands more. No one would leave their homes again. But here's the thing. The whole purpose of the SCP Foundation is to prevent the existence of SCPs getting out to humans. This would seem like a near impossible thing to do. As I mentioned, some SCPs just simply can't be contained. Others are notorious for escaping. The SCP Foundation would be under a lot of stress, trying to prevent humans from getting harmed and for having the truth revealed. But here's the thing. The SCP Foundation does have memory erasing abilities. If a human does have a run-in with an SCP, then they have a number of methods that they can use to wipe out their memory and make them forget this encounter. This can be done by drugs, hypnosis, surgery, controlled long-term living conditions, mind-affecting anomalies, advanced psychological manipulation, or any combination of the things that I just listed. If that's the case, our life would continue to go on as so. We wouldn't be aware of the SCP Foundation or the anomalies living among us, so we would live out each day like it's a normal day. Nothing would change. And even if we did encounter an SCP, like I said, our memory would be erased and boom, back to being blinded by reality. Even if a friend or family member was killed by an SCP, we would never know or find out because they would just manipulate our memory. So it would be like that person wasn't even in our lives to begin with. But if the SCP Foundation was real and they revealed themselves to us, then that's when everything would change. That's when the fear would set in. It would cause mass panic and everyone would develop agoraphobia. Because seriously, why would you risk going outside when you know there's bloodthirsty things out there waiting to attack? After the initial panic is over, maybe we would learn to live alongside them, as in schools would change their curriculum to have classes dedicated to learning about SCPs. There also would be school drills performed in case there ever is an SCP attack. Furthermore, colleges or universities might have programs you can take if you want to eventually work for the SCP Foundation. everyday life would change. People would learn how to defend themselves and learn how to stay safe when outside. Maybe the Foundation will come up with defense weapons that citizens can buy to help protect themselves. The SCP Foundation would hopefully give us their all so that we could continue on with our life without living in this constant fear. They'd have constant officers patrolling the streets in case an SCP decides to attack. As for the friendly SCPs, hey, they're harmless. Maybe they would be willing to be subservient to us. Give them jobs and let them help society, or have them as pets. People can go around like Pokemon capturing them. It's hard to say though. In the end, why would the SCP Foundation go against everything that they stand for, which is to maintain normalcy, so that the worldwide civilian population can live and go on with their daily lives without fear? Meaning, like I mentioned, our days would continue going on just as so, where we believe nothing out of the ordinary is going on. Hey, who knows, maybe the SCP Foundation is real and is currently operating right now. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, let me know in the comments below what your favorite SCP is. I'm very curious. With that being said, while you're down there, smash that like button and obviously subscribe to our channel. I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya.